Hey, this is Craig, the Pool Man with Pool Specialist. Today we have a short video for you on how to replace a Jandy or a Fluidra salt system. And we have the cell here. We've got a link down in the notes that tells you how to get this cell and what the part number is. And then you will also need to replace the backboard. And what happens is when the cell goes bad, it goes bad because the ruthenium coating wears off of it, and then it draws too much current, which tends to burn out the backboard. And if you replace the cell without replacing the backboard, if the backboard has failed and it's putting AC voltage out, that will deplete your brand new cell and you just lost $1,000+ Also, sometimes when the backboard goes, it causes the cell to go. So you never replace one without the other. Also, make sure that you get the PLC 1400 or the 700 kit, which comes with a new sensor, and it comes with the cell, new unions, etc. So we're going to go over and show you that in this. Let's go ahead and get going on it. Okay, so this is the backboard, and it comes in an anti-static bag. You're going to want to make sure that you touch ground before you start playing with this, just so that you don't have any static charges. And you'll see it comes with a new ribbon cable, new connectors, etc. So we're going to show you how to put this board in, and that goes in behind the control panel in the actual automation system. Next, we have the cell, and you'll recognize this, and it actually comes with the unions. Jandy cells are pretty robust as far as the unions go, so you're most likely not going to have to replace the unions. So we'll go ahead and remove these, and then we could just slide it in where the old cell was. Okay, so depending on how your system is set up, you actually may have the flow/temperature sensor located here, or it's possible that it's located here. Either one is a valid position, and I would just follow what it is. If the cell is located in a horizontal position, then your flow sensor is going to be here. If it's in a vertical position, your flow cell is going to be here. And a lot of it has to do with the builder and how much room they had to work with. So very important. So we're going to take these off because we're going to just replace the old one. And then this is where we're going to put our sensor. Our sensor, and I strongly recommend that you use a new sensor. You can save this as a cleaning cap for when you're actually going to clean your salt cell. And it does come with a new sensor. This is our new sensor. We're going to go ahead and unravel it a little bit. This is, as I refer to it, a dongle. This allows you to use this sensor and this salt system on either the older systems or the newer systems. And this tells you whether you have flow or no flow. So the newer systems use program A, and I seriously doubt you're going to run into the older systems, but they would be using program B. You would change it by hitting the select. So if you notice, we want to get this through this nut. So go ahead and do this now so that you don't forget about it. And then you will notice that taped right here is the O-ring. Don't forget the O-ring, because if you forget the O-ring, of course, it's going to leak. So again, Jandy O-rings tend to be pretty good. They fit in really nice, as opposed to some of the other manufacturers that kind of have to struggle. And this is actually keyed. So if you look here, you have a slot there, and so that goes in there. Now you're going to tighten this up, and it says hand tight. If you're going to use an oil wrench on it, don't go very far, not more than about 1/8 of a turn. So now we have our sensor in there. This kit also comes with a new power cable. And a lot of people are lazy and don't want to put the power cable on. However, believe it or not, a lot of times this wears, and this wears and gets corrosion in it. And so therefore I strongly recommend that you put a new power cable on it. That it comes with it. So what are you going to do with it if you don't use it, right? It can go on in either direction. It doesn't really matter. Whatever works out most conveniently for the way that your cell is installed. And you just push it on all the way. And then we're going to run that cord all the way back to the unit and plug it in. And we're going to show you how to do that. So this is where the board is located. As you drop this panel down, this is your user interface panel. And then you have your transformer and your cord that goes, your ribbon cable that goes to your user interface. So you might as well just pull that out because you know you've got a new one. And it is keyed, so you can't put it in the incorrect direction. Next, we're going to go ahead and we're going to pull out the transformer, and that plug will only go in one direction. It only fits in one spot, and so consequently we're going to go ahead and pull this out. Then you have your RS485 connector, which plugs into the board back there. Pull that out. And a keynote on that is you should use an expansion board or a COM expansion board so that you only have one wire in each one of those connectors. Last but not least, you'll see your wire that connects to your sensor. And so we're going to pull that out. And these two wires here, which eventually go down to your power cable that goes into your salt cell, you really can't pull them out without taking this board off. It makes it very, very difficult. So normally this board uses T15 nuts or screws on it. And so you'll need a T15 driver to take them off. And 90% of the time they wind up falling behind because there is no real good way to pull them out other than I was lucky. There's two of them. And then when you get to this one, I tend to pull the board out as that way I can get the screw for it. Now you'll notice that there is some lithium grease that goes on the back of this board. It allows a better heat connection between this, which is your heat sink, and the back, which is your heat sink. And if you notice, all of these components here are heat sinked to this piece of metal so that they don't burn out. So now this is the only way to remove these two wires here. So we're going to go ahead and remove those. A lot of times you'll have to get a flathead screwdriver to just pull them out and pry them out a little bit. And take note to how they're positioned, because it is important that you have the green and the black in the right direction. And it does say so on the board where you connect them. But that is critical. And when you plug in the power cable, that will also be critical. So if you look right down here, you'll see that it tells you what colors get plugged into there. So we have our new board here. And it does come with all new screws, because I can tell you frequently you wind up losing the screws. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to plug our cell in. So we're going to go ahead and plug our connector on here. The green goes to the left, the black and white goes to the right, and now comes the fun part. So usually what I try to do is I'll take one of these screws, and then don't tighten this all the way, because you're going to need to fit that screw in that bottom hole. Jandy went from the torque screws to your standard nut driver type screw, and so if you're replacing both screws, you're going to need the nut driver, and again, that's always a trick. Sometimes what you can do is you can take a little bit of tape, like painter's tape, and put it in between the screw and the nut driver, and that will help you as far as holding the nut driver, the screw to the nut driver. So now you want to make this fairly tight. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to tighten this other one, because again, that connection from the heat sink on the board, which is this piece of aluminum, to the back of the panel works as the panel itself works as a heat sink. So that's taken care of. Now at this point we can go ahead and plug up our transformer. We can go ahead and re-plug up our salt system connector, and now we're going to run our cable for our salt cell and also for our flow sensor. Alright, so we're going to run our sensor up through this big hole in the bottom, because it doesn't fit into much else. And then we're going to snake it up, and of course it gets plugged all the way up here, and it is keyed so it can only fit in one direction. Next, we're going to take our new power cable and we're going to run it up through that same big hole right next to the sensor wire. And you'll notice that if we follow these two wires that I talked to you about, right, they connect right here. And so we're going to disconnect the old power cable, and note that they have these really nice identifiers on here. So this is red, and so the green goes to the red because we have a little marker on it, and then the black and white is marked with blue, so that goes to the blue. And you just run these wires back the way they're supposed to be. We're going to put this together and fire this up and show you how it works. Don't forget, so because I had to lift this panel back into place, and when I pulled it out I removed the ribbon cable. So that ribbon cable gets plugged in to the user interface board that you can see from the front, and it also is keyed so it will only fit in one direction. And while I have your attention for that, I want to show you something. And this is the old cell, and you can see there is flow arrows on here, right? So that tells you that the flow has to go in that direction. So make sure, be very mindful that when you install the cell, the water flow is going in that direction, otherwise it's not going to work correctly. Okay, we have our cell in place. You can see that the flow goes in this direction, and this, our connection for our power is on top and our cell is on the bottom. This is very, very important that that be on the bottom if this cell is horizontal. So that is the correct installation for a Jandy salt system. And so we're going to turn our pump back on. You'll hear this. And then this is going to go through its process. Of course, the pump has to start up and start flowing. And as we watch this, you're going to see that the sensor flow light is going to flash numerous times. It does take a little while before that happens, and you'll notice up here it says wait. So we're going to fast forward here just so that you don't have to wait this whole process out. There you can see it flashing, and it should go solid after it gets done flashing. And notice that we are on program A because this is a newer system. So you can see the light on program A is on, and the sensor flow light is on here. If you look up here, it says flow. And now if we hit our temperature, we see that it's 92 degrees Fahrenheit is the water temperature, and the salinity is 3,700 parts per million. So this is now functioning correctly. You'll see that all our lights are on, our cell light is on, our flow light is on. It's actually cell reversing right now. That is going to alternate on and off depending on which cycle it's on. Every 4 hours or so it flips from one direction to the other direction. So at this point everything is fully functional with this. We've got power on, cell on, flow, and cell reversing. There are no errors that are coming up. So job done. That concludes our video on replacing a Jandy salt system or salt cell. Thank you so much for watching. If you found it educational, please drop us a like. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.